Hey guys, Friendly Neighborhood Doc here, coming from my old room at my parents' house. I came over to our new house, which is close to their house, and did some renovations and worked on some things today. So I just came over here to do my video talking about what I picked up. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first book that I picked up this week was The Amazing Spider-Man issue 54, legacy number 948 by Zeb Wells, Ed McGuinness, Mark Farmer, and Wade Von Grawbadger as inkers. This book actually had an amazing amount of heart. I was thoroughly surprised by how it ended. I don't know what else I can say about that that would not give away how this book ended. But I will say that if the entirety of Zeb Wells' run had felt like that, then I don't think people would be such up in arms about how he didn't understand the character. I think that people would be a lot more forgiving for a lot of the side treks and stories that Zeb has written over the years on this title. So it was a really, really amazing book. The artwork from Ed McGuinness, which I'm just not a big Ed McGuinness fan, I guess. I have tried to get behind it, and I like his stuff well enough, but he's just not the greatest artist in my opinion. But other than that, I would give it a solid A-. Alright. Secondly, we've got Spider-Man Shadow of the Green Goblin, issue 4. The finale to the story of the Proto-Goblin, as it says on the cover. So Niels Van Adder was someone that Norman Osborn tinkered with genetically before Osborn himself became the Green Goblin. This is a story from way, way back in the early days of Spider-Man. And J.M. DeMatteis always has his pulse on the finger of who Peter Parker is. I would love a good run, even just a year of J.M. DeMatteis taking over The Amazing Spider-Man. But if he doesn't have anything to say, then I totally understand. But as far as with this miniseries, it was excellent. Excellent. And the art by Maria, it's almost like it's painted. It's very Greg Landish, but at the same time, you'll have certain panels that kind of feel like Marco Cicchetto, because you'll get a lot of detail and scratchiness. And then at other times, like I said, you get stuff that's more fluid and more like Greg Land or somebody like that. And these covers that he's been doing are, and this is actually Paulo Siqueira that did the cover, but the artwork on this was top-notch. The storytelling was definitely top-notch, like it always is with DeMatteis. So I would have to say that this ended strongly, just like it began, and it's a very welcome addition to the Spider-Man canon, in my opinion. All right. Third up, Ultimate Spider-Man, number 7. And this is really a story about Harry Osborn and Peter Parker learning what their suits can do, learning that their suits are tied in together, and then at the end you have a really big surprise guest that pops up. And I'm just really happy about this Cicchetto artwork, man. It's solid, extremely solid. There's a lot of detail in the figures. There's a lot of storytelling in the panels and the panel layout. So I really hope that he stays on the book, but I've already seen for one of the, and here you've got Otto Octavius of this Ultimate Universe, who actually works at Oscorp. So whether he becomes Dr. Octopus that remains to be seen, or when it happens remains to be seen. But for right now, I'm just excited about how these characters are being presented, and they're showing it's in real time. So with every issue of this, it's supposedly 7 months since the beginning of this story, where we picked it up. Don't forget, Peter's a married man who's in his mid-30s now, and that's where the story picked up. But that's where it started, and this is so far where it's led, where you got 2 different Picotech suits, and they're trying to figure out exactly what the purpose of these Picotech suits are. Octavius told Harry that his Picotech suit was kind of, version 1.0, and Peter Parker's is more of a 2.0. So, I don't know. I just can't. I can't think of enough good things to say about this book that I can't wait to see where Hickman is going to go with it, and I really hope that Hickman and Cicchetto stay on this book for more than a year so that Hickman has the option and the time to flesh these characters out even further and just keep bringing us this wonderful world. All right, next up, we have Spawn number 355 by Rory McConville for the story and Brett Booth as the artist. This artwork by Brett Booth, even though Booth has been in comics since the mid-90s, just keeps getting better and better and better. And the story by McConville, after somebody took over the Throne of Hell in issue 350, which was left vacant after Mel Bolgia was killed way back in issue 100, then this story's gone down a natural path. The Dead Zones have expanded. Dead Zones are where Spawn and characters like him, Hellspawn, and angels and demons cannot use their powers. So the Dead Zones have expanded all over the earth. There's also, green zones and things like that. So this is telling a really wild story about how do you survive when you're used to surviving on your superhuman powers, to blast somebody away from you or to protect you or to heal you. And now you don't have that. So it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a deep story about humanity or humankind or, I don't think it's going to win, even come close to winning, and this is a joke, any World Fantasy Awards, nothing like that. But at the same time, it's a good story about what do you do when your crutch is gone? How do you react and how do you continue moving forward? So, and hey, you can't beat it that the Todd Father is still giving you all this story for $2.99, whereas you've got Amazing Spider-Man clocking in at $4.99 and Ultimate Spider-Man clocking in at $4.99. All right. Saga finally returns with issue 67, and this is a story about the circus and how, how the main character has moved into being one of the people that controls the animals that are in the circus. And she's just trying to provide a good job and safety for the animals and safety and enjoyment for the people going and seeing the circus. So, and meanwhile, this dolphin-like creature here has an accident, and I didn't know an animal could have that much diarrhea. So that's definitely the line of the entire book. But it's great to see the slow continued growth of all these characters, including the Will and his lady, Gwen. So, like Rockin' Robbie said in his video last night, Saga do what Saga do, and it just continues being a geopolitical story about family ties, history, and moving on after you've seen so very much in life that should shut you down, but instead you just pivot and move on to the next thing. All right. Next up, we've got the last 2 books. We've got Grommets, issue 3 of 7. And all I'm going to say about Grommets is I feel like I was transported back to the 1980s. There was arcade action in here. It was almost like a Ferris Bueller's Day Off type day where 2 of the kids skipped school and went out to just have their own day, enjoy their life. And if you didn't grow up in the 80s, if you didn't grow up during that time, life was so much easier back then. It was more difficult to call your parents, get a ride, go somewhere, or something like that. But as far as living, well, there weren't so many distractions. You didn't have a smartphone. You didn't have anything like that to take away your thought process and fragment what you were trying to say. Here, you just went out and had fun and enjoyed life. And I'm really enjoying this by Rick Remender and Brian Posehn, and then art by Brett Parsons. So if you haven't read this and you grew up in the 1980s, do yourself a favor and snag this before it gets too much further, or else I would just say once you get to issue 4 or past that, grab the trade when it comes out, because you will not be disappointed. There are a ton of Easter eggs that, for those of us that did grow up in the 80s, it harkens back to a better time, a happier time, and a more carefree time. All right, and the last book, get over here, you, is The Dept of Truth, issue 24 by James Tynion with art by Martin Simmons. And, I thought this was Tynion's first big breakout book. But I've never been a very big conspiracy theory fan. Just never has really attracted me. But as I'm reading this issue, I'm realizing that if James didn't have 7,000 books going at any given time, and he could focus his narrative on this particular book and maybe 2 other books, maybe 3, that this book could come out on time each and every month, and it would be one of the strongest titles on the entire shelf. This is building up to the assassination of JFK, which I'm assuming is going to happen next issue. But it's Lee Harvey Oswald explaining his birth into the Dept of Truth once he began to understand what that was, and that he was even recruited by the Department of Lies back before Kennedy was assassinated. So if you do dig conspiracy theories, if you dig that sort of thing, then by all means, check this book out. It just came back, I think, a month ago with issue 23, and it looks like, we'll probably get 25, maybe 26 and 27 before there's another hiatus. But like I said, if you like this kind of stuff, be sure to check it out, because the artwork is absolutely... it's got a style of its own. It's something classic, but then it's somewhat Bill Sienkiewicz. And then, like I said, it's its own thing. But even though when you first look at it, it looks scratchy and you don't really know what you're looking at all the time, once you get into it, I give that book an A++, because between the art and the story, it was the most put together book that I read this entire week. So thanks for hanging out with me, guys. That's what I bought. That's what I read. What did you guys pick up from the shop? And I did a short little video this morning talking about it, and I still haven't seen any email or conversation from 3 of the 4 winners that I plugged last week for the issue 100 subscribers. And so if I don't get their addresses by this evening, then I'm going to put the wheel together, and my wife and I will spin the wheel again tomorrow or maybe the day after, and we'll pick some new names. So just want to let you know, guys, got to move forward, got to move ahead. Just like the channel is going forward, moving ahead. I gave away what I thought was some pretty cool prizes, or tried to give them away, but if I don't get that address, if I don't get that information to give it to you, I cannot get it to you. So anyway, we will see you guys on the next video. Take care, and we'll talk to you soon.